And hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is the last one of the reviews of the pilots and from Amazon. And next week we'll be doing the roundup with it. And this week is the Cosmopolitans. Joining me for this is Marcus Shadow
Yo.
and James Phoenix.
Hello.
So let's begin with this. I honestly thought the Cosmopolitans was pretty fucking awesome. I mean, if you're listening, if you know his other works, it says it all when it was created by Whit Stillman. Yeah,
No
I rest my
idea.
case. What was that?
I said, I had no idea who that is.
Me either.
Okay, fair enough. And this is about Jimmy, and I think the other one
It's
was
about me.
no, it's about Jimmy, and I think her name was Aubrey.
Mm-hmm.
About basically, Jimmy goes to a restaurant, he meets up with a friend, or a cafe rather, meets up with a friend in Paris, and it sets off a chain reaction, like going to a party and stuff like that in Paris, which it's kind of cool.
How many times they said the guy's name and everybody knew him? I thought it was about Fritz.
See, I thought it was more about Jimmy, played by what's his face, Adam Brody.
Mm-hmm.
Thought it was more about him, but yeah,
It was.
I
I was
love
just making a joke.
ah, but like I said, I like this. I like this series. So where would you guys like to begin? Since I've mentioned what it's about, as it's pretty much like a chain reaction, like the normal type of stuff that you'd expect, like a with Stuntman work. But either one of you?
I don't know. I had issues with this. I didn't think it was all that good. Like, honestly, Aubrey and Fritz are really the only two characters I even remember the names of, if they name the other characters. And the guys that she meets are supposed to be the main characters of the story, from what I understand. Because it's about them in France and stuff like that. And it's like, I don't even remember their names. And it's just like, kind of forgettable characters. Very little development of anything. There's like no story. There was nothing there to draw me in or to tell me why I should even care or be interested. It was just boring to me. Like, honestly, it was boring to the point that I almost wanted to shut it off. I was like, I basically had to force myself to even pay like half attention to it. It was that dry and dull, and it's like, okay, it's supposed to be a dramedy. Number one, there's very little to no comedy. Kind of like the other. I can't. What was the other one that we watched? That was supposed. Was it really? Where I've really
Really?
had
Yeah.
more comedy than this one. It's just I
This
didn't
one,
like the comedy in the other one.
this one's supposed to be more drama than comedy. A lot more drama than comedy.
Which is fair enough, but if it's supposed to be drama, then I expect an actual story. I didn't feel there was an actual storyline to this. It was just like, they're there, boom. And it's like, okay, overarching, fair enough. It's going to be them living in Paris, fair enough. But each episode should have a structured story. And I just didn't feel there was any structured story to this. And it's just like, it kind of just meandered, and it was boring, and ugh.
Fair enough. What did Jimmy think?
I agree with Marcus to a point. I also found it rather boring, and I found it hard to. I mean, I did like the characters. I was interested in who the characters were and wanted to find out more about them. I think they
Yes.
did very good with that. I like finding out each of these guys are different things. Oh, this one guy knows drug dealers. Oh, how's that going to play out? Oh, Fritz is a party guy. All these different people. You're like, okay, these seem like interesting people, and France seems like a cool place. Let's follow this and see where it goes. But I also felt like, number one, like Marcus said, there wasn't really much of a plot to follow. He said, oh, we're going to go to a party and try to hook up, which, okay, fair enough. That's that's valid, but that's not really a plot, especially if you're trying to make it a drama. And at the same time, I also felt like there were a lot of characters that, well, you could, obviously, they were different actors, but I couldn't tell character-wise. There weren't a whole lot of things to tell them apart, especially because, again, with the exception of Fritz and Aubrey, none of them really got their names mentioned. So it was hard to like, okay,
Jimmy?
there's the older guy. This is the guy that's dating Claumer, whatever the fuck her name was,
Clements.
Clemence.
Yeah, see, even I remember the ex-girlfriend that we never see the entire episode. I remember her name more than I remember his. It's like, well, no, it shouldn't be that way. They're your main characters. You want us to remember the main characters, not characters that are mentioned but never show up.
I'm really surprised you both forgot Jimmy.
Why?
Because he was like one of the top ones, and he was like the first guy who got top billing and stuff like that.
Yeah, and they never mention his name. That
Then
goes
how did
into
I
the
know his name
problem.
was Jimmy?
You
Maybe
probably
they
read it in
mentioned
the
it
credits.
once. Yeah, or they mentioned it maybe at the top of the show, or like when you first see him. But that goes into my problem with this show. Is the fact that, as Jim pointed out, the characters aren't interesting. They actually give the characters some depth. The problem is they don't give, at least to me, they don't give me any reason to care about these interesting characters. Like I said, it says it all when the only main character's name I can remember is Aubrey. And to me, she was the most interesting character, so fair enough. And she's the one that they start the series with. In fact, if anything, it feels like the series is her story, since they start with her and they basically follow her throughout the entire episode. And it's like, okay, if it's supposed to be her story, then fair enough. And you gave me her name, and you got me interested in her, so that's cool. You've done your job. But the way I understood the story of this, or the premise of this series, is it's supposed to be following all the Americans and them living in France and interacting with each other, this group of expats in a different country. Which that premise sounds awesome, but the way they executed it was, in my opinion, piss poor. Because it's like, I don't care about any of them really, except for maybe Aubrey. But that's because they say her name every other fucking scene, and they gave her the most development out of any of the characters, and they kind of make me actually care about her by the end of the thing. It's like, okay, I kind of want to see what's going to happen with her by the end of this thing. But because there was no real plot to follow, it was just like I said it before, it was kind of just meandering, and it's just like, okay, I care about Aubrey, but I don't know what the fuck is going on.
Fair enough.
Also,
Uh,
with the exception of the main few guys, I had trouble keeping track of who was American and who was French.
That too.
Fair enough. And I'll say, like I mentioned to them, I really loved this. I'm glad it's been picked up, and it's intelligent. It's intelligent and it's highbrow, and it's a bit more class than what people are normally used to. I think that's what will turn people off, but it's pretty well done. Just the beginning alone is kind of genius, where they cut to that song, "What becomes of the broken hearted." Halfway
Yes.
through, it swaps to a French version.
Yes, I noticed that. That was
That's fucking
genius.
genius. That's genius, and
That was well done.
it's like a very contemporary piece, because like you got like the big like art style, like static shots with like the city. You got like more of the inner dwellings of how this works. It's very similar to the person who made this, their other work, which was, I believe it was called Metropolitan. This feels like that, but in Paris instead of where that one was set, which I think that one was, if I remember correctly, it was either New York or Brook or somewhere like that. But
Mm-hmm.
it's genius. It's a highbrow. It's a bit of class, which, yeah, some people are gonna hate this if you're listening to this. Some people are probably gonna hate this because it doesn't spoon feed you stuff like other stuff does. It wants you to sit down, follow these, and study it in the same way as his other works. It's more of a how'd you put this? More like an artsy style series, or like I said, like I mentioned, like a highbrow series, which if you like that type of stuff, which I encourage people to always check out stuff like that, it's totally fucking worth it. This is
Fair
the
enough.
only Amazon pilot that I've gone back and watched multiple times.
Really.
Yep.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I like this one.
Fair enough. I think it might have helped that you're also already familiar with this particular creator's work, whereas
Yes.
Marcus and I were not, so that might have been sort of a rough introduction for us.
Yeah, because you were familiar with the work and you've seen his other work, you kind of expected what was shown on the screen. This was completely not what we were expecting, and it's kind of not our style. Not to say that we don't like highbrow stuff. It's just, we got this and we were like, what? This is weird.
Yeah, but to be fair, just because you like a creator doesn't necessarily mean you'll like all of their work.
No, but what I'm saying is that you were familiar enough with it that it didn't jar you and it wasn't anything unexpected because you're familiar with how he does his stuff, how he directs and stuff.
Fair enough, but yeah, like I said, I like it, and I like the fact he broke from convention. He
Okay.
really broke from convention with this. Other series that are done in a similar vein to this, where you'd get like more of the drama, like stretched out about groups of friends and stuff, they're usually 40 to an hour long episodes. This was 30 minutes. He
Yeah.
cut out all the pandering and all the little trims and all, like I said, all the hand holding and stuff, and just went to the heart and the meat of it, and that's fucking genius. That's one of the other reasons I went back to rewatch this, like Hand of God, for example, and most of the other ones. The main problem with them was they were way too long for what they were.
Yes.
This one was under what these types of work usually are. This is the only one of this that felt, besides Red Oaks, which felt like they got the right amount of time. This one felt like it was brilliant. How the length of time of this of 30 minutes was perfect.
Yeah, the time was actually pretty good. Although when it ended, again because of all the other problems I had with it, when it ended, I was like, "That's it. That's the end." Like I wasn't expecting it to end because it didn't
There
feel
is
like there was any substance there. I was like, "Wait, that's it? I don't understand.
there
I
is
didn't
there's
get
a
anything
reason
out
for
of this." What's that?
there is a reason for
What's that?
it's half an episode.
It's half an episode.
Yep, it looked, at least to me when I watched it, I felt, oh, this is great. It feels like there should be a little bit more here, and that's brilliant for a TV show. You should get more. And I'm like, it's a weird place to end an episode. I don't mind it. It's brilliant. It feels like Act One of a play or something like that. I was like, that's kind of cool. And after I watched it a
Mm-hmm.
couple of times, I kept thinking that. I was like, okay, does this end weirdly? And I did research a little bit, and I found out that, yeah, I found an interview with the guy who made it.
See, I don't think
He
where in
originally
this. Oh,
he originally wrote 1 hour script,
fair
and he
enough.
said the second half he felt was a piece of shit and was not up to his caliber of work, so he cut it and said, "Here you go, here's a 30-minute pilot."
And he's working it, which is fine. And I didn't feel well, quote, story wise, unquote, and I say quote because I didn't feel there was much of a story there, but in terms of what was presented, I didn't feel it was a weird place to stop because it stops with guy who can't get over his ex going off to go see said ex, and the other guy's getting, for those who haven't seen spoilers, but for those guys who went to the party, they get kicked out of the party and they're walking off to the next thing. It's like, okay, yeah, that feels like a natural place to end the episode. But because, again, to me, not much really happened in the episode, I was just kind of left going, huh?
See, I felt it was a slight weird place to end it, just because, like I said, it felt like the first act, like it's going to keep building and stuff, which you want from a TV show, let's be honest. But
Mm-hmm.
it didn't get the conclusions or the wrap up and stuff that you normally get from a TV show. But I felt that was a strong point for it. While that was a
Yeah.
weird, I felt it was a weird place to end. I was like, that's kind of cool. You've ended it like in a first, for like I said, like a first act, which basically means the next one, which will be like the second act, you can up it. Third act, you can
Yeah.
up it, and so forth, and it'll feel like a proper story when you watch it all as a whole. But even if you watch the short little episodes like this, it's pretty genius. I highly recommend this to everyone listening.
Fair enough. I mean, I don't know that I can or can't recommend it because, like I said, personally, I didn't like it. But, someone like you who's, as we keep harping on this, but someone who's like familiar with this guy's work and familiar with this type of story, you absolutely loved it. So there's obviously because it's been picked up, there's obviously an audience for it. So it can't be all that bad. I just personally didn't find anything there for me.
Yep.
So I'm not going to go out and say don't watch it. I would say maybe view it and come up with your own opinion
Fair
with this
enough.
one.
And I will just say, I'm going to have to say to the people listening, for anyone that's voted on the Amazon stuff, thank you. For one simple reason. Well, like we said, Hysteria was kind of good, but it wasn't that. It wasn't that. Like we said, its premise was the most genius part about it. Everything else was sloppy.
Yeah.
And they didn't pick it up. This was actually intelligent. It was actually something that I would count more, like I said, more artsy compared to other stuff, more class, if you will. And it's like they picked it up, and I'm like, thank you, at last you're actually listening to class. I'm not actually saying there's anything wrong with lowbrow stuff either. I mean, there is a place for that. It's called Fox, but it's a case of when, and that's just a joke, people. But yeah, when it comes to stuff like this, thanks. But yeah, when it comes to this type of stuff, it normally gets passed over. That's something I do love about Amazon. Like their last season, one of the ones they picked up was Mozart in the Jungle, which is all about classical music and the people who write it and their lives as they're writing it in a more slightly modernish way. And it's genius. I absolutely love the fact it seems like more intelligent people are voting on the Amazon stuff as opposed to, like, if you did this on Netflix, I can pretty much guarantee you how popular Netflix is to the masses. I can guarantee you one of the dumbest show ever would get picked up just because Facebook found some sort of meme in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that.
I would like to say, though, shifting from the character and story, technically speaking, this pilot was actually pretty well done. Pacing was pretty good. Length was good. The cinematography was actually very well done, I have to admit. And the acting was actually pretty good on most points. So, well done on the technical side with this one.
Fair enough. What does Jim think? Because he's been quiet for a little bit.
No, I agree. I think the acting was very good, and I think it looked beautiful. I mean, all the different scenes in Paris and all the different locales and showing off the city. I think they did really good that way. I think that worked really well. I think they just got a little short in terms of the way it was presented, at least to viewers like myself and Marcus. It just everything looked beautiful. The acting was great. It's like, okay, we've got the setting, we've got the people, but we don't. What are they doing in the setting? Like it was missing the plot.
And who are they?
No, we learned a little bit about who they are.
No, I mean literally, who are they? Like I said, we don't remember the names of any of the characters except for the girl.
And Fritz.
And Jimmy.
Fritz. You remember Jimmy.
And Clemence.
Yeah, and the one character that didn't show up again. It's like.
Right. I'm gonna have to give props there when it comes to the acting. When I saw his name, I was a little skeptical, you might say, with Adam Brody.
Mm-hmm.
Only because I've seen some of those stuff. I'm not a massive fan, if that makes sense. Yeah. I remember him when he was younger, and I was like, I'm not a massive fan. He's aged really well, I'm gonna give him that, and he acted fucking brilliantly. I was like, I like it. But yeah, the thing with stuff like this is the story isn't necessarily something like this. It's not necessarily like you're not going to get, I don't know, like the Power Ranger storytelling, let's say, because I know that's something both people watched. But it's more like if you went to watch an opera.
Mm-hmm.
It's the music, it's the scenery, it's the way it makes you feel just looking at the imagery and stuff like that. I mean, come on, because if you break down most opera stories, they're not that good. It's just what it brings as like an art, and that's what this is meant to be more viewed as, which it's pretty damn good.
Right. When Jim and I were discussing it after we watched it, Jim mentioned that this was supposed to be kind of like Seinfeld.
I just said all I said was that it seemed to me okay. So there was 4 people. There's the main guy. There's another dude that has relationship issues and family problems. There's a chick, and there's an older dude that does, crazy things that most people would not think to do, i.e., call a drug dealer to a party that is not yours. So I just sort of felt like it was okay. It's sort of that kind of stuff. Okay, it's 4 people, and we're gonna follow what they're doing in Paris, which is a valid setup for a
Right.
show. It just felt like there wasn't a cohesive. Okay, they're going to a party, they're doing this, but I think, like you said, well, I think it's because he cut the ending off, and so it felt like it wasn't ending to it, and so therefore it seemed like it was. It was like Seinfeld, but minus a lot of the comedy, because there were a few jokes. It focused more on the seriousness of
not
the relationships.
comedy, it's a drama. But the point that I was trying to make is that, as Jim pointed out when we were discussing it, it's supposed to be a Seinfeld-esque of, kind of a show about nothing. It's basically you following this group of friends, or in this case, people who will become friends, and some of them who already are, on their adventure. And this one happens to be in Paris, so it's them living in Paris. Fair enough. But, and if you ever watch Seinfeld, and I watched some of the episodes of Seinfeld, and I like that show. It's a pretty cool show. In the grand scheme of the show, there was really no overarching story, because it was just following these friends, some of them who happen to live, in the same complex or whatever, and it's following their day-to-day lives, which is kind of what you're doing here. The difference is, with Seinfeld, while there was no overarching story, every episode had a self-contained story, beginning, middle, and end, of kind of, okay, this is what's going to happen today, and you can follow that. I didn't feel that with this pilot. I felt that it was basically just, here's a bunch of people, now go care about them, and it's like, really?
To be fair, I think the Seinfeld comparison's a little off. They're two very different shows. In terms of how it's meant to be, this is more like your regular drama series of, like, I don't know, which ones will you guys have seen? Did any of you watch, I don't know, Beverly Hills 90210, or...
Yes.
Yeah, if you watch Beverly Hills 90210, go rewatch it. I loved 90210 when it first came out. I liked it. I have it on DVD. And yeah, if you watch each episode, nothing really happens. It just lingers like a soap, and it's the overarching stuff that builds to a story. That's the type of thing this is. It's
Right.
this journey these friends are going on. Like the first episode of Beverly Hills 90210 was just, they've moved to a new area, they go to school, and they meet people. That was it. There was no real story there. But when you watched more and more episodes of this drama, then you got the stories.
Right, but you mentioned soaps. I have watched soaps before, and even in soap operas, yes, you have the big continuing arc. You have that, it builds upon itself, which is fair enough, but each individual episode still has a structured story. And this, to me, felt like it had no structure, and without the structure, without a structure, and again, without character names, aside from Jimmy and Aubrey, but the other characters, just like, at the very least, for your main characters, the characters we're supposed to care about, and you want us to care about, because we're going to be following them every episode, at least give us their names, especially if you're going to bother to give us, some backstories for them, and kind of their little nuances and stuff, and what they're into and not into. You're giving us all this information about them, except who the hell they are. And it's like, that really bothered me.
Except the main group of friends are the three which everyone's remembered the names of. There are other ones, but they're more like side friends or side characters. You're going to get to know them more. This was all about establishing the main trio, the Trinity, if you will.
There's more. See, there's 1, 2, 3. There's 4 of them, because there's the 3 Americans, and I think he was Italian, the mobster dude.
The older guy, yeah.
But it's like, I don't even remember the name of Clamance's boyfriend. Like, seriously, to use a WWE analogy, he's basically Tyson Kidd to me. I just call him Clamance's ex.
Yeah, that's really all he is. We didn't get the older dude's name. We got Aubrey's name, and I guess the other guy was Jimmy, but we didn't get the other 2 dudes of the 4 main characters. When you only identify half your main characters, that's not a good way to start a show.
Yeah, well, we got the older guy's name, but because he was kind of more the side character, they didn't focus on him too much. I didn't care enough to remember the name. That's what I'm saying. They probably gave us Tyson Kidd over there. They probably gave us his name, but I didn't care enough to remember it. And that's, in my opinion, pretty bad when you can't make your audience care enough to remember their names if you even gave them in the first place.
Can I just slightly point out the analogy is slightly flawed?
Why?
When you turn around and say, it's like Tyson Kidd, it's someone I can't remember the name of, You named him. You remembered his name.
First names him where they refer to him as Natty's husband. It's like
They-
that's you know.
You don't understand that when the WWE universe does that with NXT and stuff, it's ironic. They're doing it
I
to
know.
annoy him because he's a heel. That's like
I
saying
know.
Kurt Angle really sucked.
I know. But I'm just saying that's kind of how I've identified this guy because I don't remember his name, so I can only remember him as boyfriend of chick I've never seen, and I can remember her name, which is like, nah, it shouldn't be that way. I shouldn't be remembering the name of the person who's not actually in the fucking show.
Well, fair enough. But
Ah.
how would everyone rate this?
I probably would rate it as an avoid because I did not like this at all.
Fair enough. I thought you were going with the numbers.
Uh,
That's what you went with the last one.
a 4, maybe. Like I said, on the
out of
technical
5?
side, it was out of 10.
Out of 5?
Because like I said, on the technical side, it was good, but just it had so many issues on my friend that I'm just like, no, this is not a good show.
Fair enough.
Jim?
Well, let's see. I give it 3 out of 5 Pauls. No, continuity. But no, I would say I'd probably give this. I'm gonna say a 6 out of 10. I'm gonna be a little generous because I really did like the characters, and I really was interested to see where it would go and find out what these characters were gonna do in Paris and exactly how their lives were gonna intertwine and come together, and how the side characters. Because the characters were interesting to me, and I was interested in finding out. It was just hard to follow what was going on because I didn't know half their names. I didn't really understand exactly the relations between them and exactly what was supposed to be going on, what I was supposed to be following. I got a little lost, but the scenery was beautiful. The music was well used. I like the song they ended with, "In Love." That was good. And I liked the way the way they were acting. The acting was really good. And they were obviously very into their characters, and it just seemed like it was just lacking a little bit of a little bit of understanding, at least on my part. Maybe not the fault of the show. That might be on me. Of okay, this is who they are and this is what they're doing. So yeah, I would say give it a 6. I would say if you have a little extra time and you want to check out the pilot for 27 minutes, it's not going to be the end of the world for you. But if you're the kind of person who needs to have action going on in front of you to give a crap, stay away.
Yeah, and I'm not saying there needs to be action in this. It's just like you said, there needs to be more setup. They didn't, in my opinion, adequately set up the characters. They set up like the emotionality of the characters and the fact that they're there and that they're from America and this guy is in love with Clemence and can't see 2 feet in front of his face, that she really doesn't like him anymore. But it's like, okay, that's all well and good, but give me the characters as opposed to what they are. Give me who they are and give me why I should care. Like you said, set up what's going to happen. It's like you said, I got lost in this thing because it's like you're not giving me any direction. I'm not saying spoon feed it to me, but come on, give me a road sign somewhere.
Fair enough. And for me, like I mentioned last time, I'm going with the 3 or 2 tiers in a case like this with watch or avoid. I'm going to say watch it, and I'm going to say I highly recommend you watch it because, like I said, it's basically, to put this in musical terms, it's the classical music of TV. It's that sort of TV show that'll make you feel and just inspire your senses based on like what you're seeing, what you're hearing and experiencing. It may not have a story, but like a great big story, like a villain of the week or something like that. But it's definitely worth checking out, and I feel everyone should check it out because, personally speaking, like I said, I can like lowbrow stuff like on the wrestling or Power Rangers or something, but at the same time, I also like stuff like this or say Schindler's List, and I feel more people need to be exposed to stuff like this. It's like classical music. It's pretty cool to listen to classical music, but it's one of those things not everyone gets a chance to. But if you do, if you just sit down and listen to it, you'll appreciate it more. It's like not everyone drinks wine, but if you give them a nice glass of wine, it may open their horizons. So open your horizons and experience this. Do it. It's totally worth it.
Fair enough.
But I was your host, Quiz, aka the Mole. I'm going to thank the other two for joining me,
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
and I'm going to say, see ya.